Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the New Order as the Siberian Empire. Now, last time we were here together, we kicked down the government in Tomsk, and we are currently setting our sights to the west. But in the meanwhile, well, it's time for the Tsar's speech. Also, in the meanwhile, we have some supply issues, especially over here. So, what I'm going to do, it's time to extend out the railway. Looks like we can upgrade the railways over here. And then I'll do, see if I can't connect these guys through here. There we go. Oh, that's that, methinks. Let's do the infantry kit, and let's get to it. Yeah, let's get to it. There we go, an end to wonders. General Volkoganov, General Volkoganov, I understand you want to see me. Indeed. Oh, no, wait, that's just, this isn't the monarch, never mind. Indeed, have a seat, Mr. Sobchak. Volkoganov said as he gestured towards the chair facing his desk. His guest obliged without hesitation. I apologize, Mr. Sobchak, but I'm going to cut right to the point. I understand the formalities were never my strong suit. I don't intend for this emerging government to last forever. Now that the dust is settled, I believe the time is right to begin the transition towards a civilian administration. Sobchak raised an eyebrow. Wow. I see. And I suppose you think I'm the best candidate to lead this administration. You catch on fast, don't you? That was the idea, yes. Your tenure as mayor of Chita was nothing short of exemplary and a fine example of statesmanship. We could use that kind of skill in the national government. What do you say, Sobchak? Are you ready to move up in the world? A grin crept across the face of Anatoly Sobchak. He had waited for this moment for years. It would be my pleasure. Enter Anatoly Sobchak. Stage left. Very nice. Is there anything that will help with our poverty? These all kind of suck, I'll be real. I'll start the atomic program, I guess. I'm also gonna cut down on our military expenditures. We have 0 inflation right now, which is beautiful. Truly, truly something, this. And yeah, I guess just in the meanwhile, you know, I'm not too worried about GDP growth. Might be a good idea to start fighting poverty. And there goes our inflation now, all of a sudden, drats. Well, still got the surplus. That'll pay down some of our debt. A bloodless coup in Jamaica. Interesting. We can sell more convoys. Look at that. It's all very beautiful, isn't it? Something just dropped outside. I don't know what, though. So some research grants and some academic basic physics institutes. I want to up our improve some of that. We'll do some closed facilities as well. Oh no. Not Strom Thurmond. This is truly a dark day in America right now. It's a dark day for Canada and therefore the world. I need to watch South Park more. I had see, I had Paramount Plus, but my mom canceled it without notifying me. And then I got HBO Max because my girlfriend has it, and so I was starting to watch with that. And then they took that down from fucking HBO Max and put it back on Paramount, which is all very, very convoluted. Let's pay off this debt. I also like how HBO Max renamed itself from HBO to Max, and now it's back to HBO Max. I don't get it. Is Owenberg just gonna fucking exist here now? Dear fucking God. Oh no. That's a little unfortunate. Let's do a foundation for research. This might be the point where we stop having any surpluses. I guess maybe if I cut down the social spending, but I don't really think I want to do that. Oh no. Anyway. Up there goes the Federation. Oh, I got frame rate killing me right now. It's the autosave, that's what's doing it. Okay, economy. Oh, we got a lot more going on here, don't we? Oh, look at that. That's actually beautiful. And we still have a surplus going for a while, so... I'm looking to enforce the new imperial system. Sure. Despite all our best efforts, civilian administrators that we've put in place are still struggling to force order over the vast amounts of territory we control and name. Furthermore, some elements in the army, reports of Volkogonov, are still simmering over the removal of Shepanov. These serious allegations have alarmed many in the Tsar's new regime and have quickly brought them to take action. Tsar and his closest have decided that the new system that they worked so hard to create and gambled with Tsar's life to solidify its price list, and as such should be guarded against all attempts at dissension and sedition. However, Volkogonov and Mikhailov have warned of extremes. The new administration must walk a very delicate tightrope to ensure that the actions they take to secure their rule does not demonize them to the people they are humoring. There we go. I do want to apologize, by the way, for the past couple days. I'm recording this on, is it Tuesday? Yeah, it's Tuesday. And I didn't get anything uploaded the past, well, 2 days. I've been a little bit busy. I'm about to go on vacation this Friday. So I've been doing a little bit of packing, a little bit of working, a little bit of everything in between. So just kind of all that going on. Oh, we could just sell our resources. That's right. I'll do that for a bit. With all that kind of going on, I've just been a little distracted, and I've had to put YouTube a little bit on the back burner, which I'm not proud of. But, you know, it's a sort of thing where you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm sure you all understand. I hope you all understand. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. Womp womp, I guess. Let's end their legacy. There was the White Movement, and then there was Shepanov. Shepanov was cronies decrepit old men who didn't believe the Civil War ever ended, while being a part of the White Movement certainly didn't represent it. The White Movement is best represented by those who worked behind the scenes, as well as the tempered constitutionalists and the czarist loyalists, the exact sort of people who trumped Shepanov and his perfidious schemes not just a few years ago. Thus, we should work to end the legacy of the likes of Boris Shepanov and his clique of enfeebled old men. His name shall be demonized, his character placed beside the Soviets and the fascists as threats to our movement, and all those tied to him, his administration shall be investigated, and, if need be, forced into retirement in obscurity. Let's do a destroyer hull. There we go. You turn your head for a little bit, and the AI just... Well, I was messing with the AI the whole time. I should probably take partial responsibility for that. I'll raise my hand and admit that. Bogdan enjoyed his mid-afternoon lunches. He always considered himself fortunate enough to live in one of the few cities in Russia that hadn't been turned to rubble. The city is far enough away from the West that never needed the fear of the Luftwaffe. They were even fortunate enough to have luxuries like cafes and functional plumbing. It was a form of which he was enjoying at the moment. Coffee was still impossible to come by, but the cafe owners did manage to secure imports of tea from some Chinese smugglers. It was just as well. Bogdan always preferred tea, which thankfully he could afford due to his ministry position. It had been quite a peculiar day at the ministry building, Bogdan half thought to himself as he absent-mindedly skimmed the paper. There had been naught but a skeleton staff manning the government buildings, and many of the important officials had been strangely absent. Bogdan would have been content to leave the thought off there, finish his tea, and head back to work. In an instant, he shot up and ran to the window. A row of tanks were coming down the street, with a platoon of soldiers in front of them knocking on every corner and heading into every shop. Bogdan grabbed his briefcase and ran out for the door when a soldier barged in with 2 others at his side, their guns raised. Before Bogdan or anyone else in the cafe could say anything, the soldiers raised their megaphones and spoke. All citizens must return to their homes. The city is now under martial law. Well, that's interesting. Still opening our doors over to, well, what exactly does that... Yeah, just a bunch of extra tags now that we don't really need. Integra Barbuda and Montserrat. Look at that. Oh, it's kind of cool that the Dutch get a Suriname. I like that. It's kind of charming. And then did... I don't know, I pay so little attention to this section of the world. I don't know who really goes where. Well, the game was running a little bit too well anyway. Might as well slow down our computing speed a little bit more. I'd say it's a better game for Japan than anyone right now. We'll see what happens in Iran, but they've locked down the east pretty well. Looks like they won just about all their issues. One in the Philippines. They crushed the rebellion over here. India reunited without non-favor of them, but that's more of a neutral thing than anything. And the Pan-Africans have done well out here, other than when we helped out the OFN here, just because I kind of felt bad for them. Let's depoliticize the army. One of the main issues that the white movement faced during our shaky first years was dominance of the military and its strongmen in the politics of the movement. Individuals like Shepanov and any other potential power brokers that would have succeeded him are representatives of the worst parts of our movement, and thus should be weeded out and eliminated if any are still around. Further, however, it's important that we not just weed out any existing troublemakers, but also ensure that the army will forevermore be an organ of Tsar's will, and nothing more. The academics will churn out officers dedicated to the Tsar and no one else, and the troops will equate their support for the Tsar as important as their dedication to Russia or God himself. There we go. Oh. Mamma mia. Ironic, isn't it? Boris Shepanov looked up from the bottom of his cell, only to find himself looking up at Mikhail with a small outline of a smile on his face. What is? Personally, it's ironic that a strong man like yourself, having been enforced this role on to me, has, in a twist of fate, been imprisoned by the very same man who was forced to become their leader. It's a Shakespearean comedy, isn't it? Perhaps a tragedy from where you are. Boris Shepanov smiled at the Tsar, but the crease on his face revealed that was not a smile born from genuine pleasure. That is true, Mikhail. It is comedic in its outcome, and it still can be, if you rule the way I think you will. So, are you just here to gloat? To bask in your glory, oh great and wonderful Tsar? Actually, said Mikhail's face still upturned in the shape of a faint smile, I'm here to tell you that you are being released to the Manchurian city of Harbin. From there you will be able to live a hopefully more fulfilling life than the one you lead now. But you will never return to Russia for as long as you live. I guess I should be glad you didn't execute me. And yet, I'm not. Mikhail didn't respond, and instead of retorting, walked away. May he find redemption either in himself or in his works. Let's get working on some submarines. Here we go. Kind of maxing out on the research over here, aren't we? We could do improved assault weapons, I suppose, actually. Oh. Ivan Mikhailov, the former Minister of Finance and the man who helped save the empire from its own power-hungry military, was dead. For all the energy he expended during his gambit against General Shepanov's clique, it seemed that such a stressful ordeal left Mikhailov with nothing else to give. He had passed away peacefully in his own sleep, a very different fate from the threat of public execution that once loomed over his head. A public funeral was held in Chita a few days after Mikhailov's passing, and almost the entire governing body of the empire was in attendance. The first to speak before the attendees was Tsar Mikhail II, a man who had much to owe to Mikhailov. Mikhail nervously looked at the crowd. He had no script, no plans for his speech, only grief that weighed heavily on his mind. I did not know Mikhailov for long. When I first came to Russia, I assumed that he was like all the others, a delusional exile who intended to keep me under lock and key. For years, I had no reason to doubt this assumption, until one fateful day in my garden. No. Be strong. It was that day I learned that he was not like the rest. Mikhailov cared for me, and he cared for Russia. I owe so much to the man that I could not possibly express through words. I wouldn't be the Tsar that I am now without his help. We must all remember him as He couldn't hold back any longer. Mikhail burst into sobbing, his emotions exposed for all the Empire to see. His bodyguards came to guide him off the stage, and the next minister took the floor. Memento mori. Damn. Now I'm sad. Construction. Let's do a supply hub over. Do we? How does this work? Do we not have room for I'm confused. I don't know what's going on there then. Let's go on with... Let's do Volkogonov's plan. The new chief of the army and interim prime minister of his government, Volkogonov, has come to the Tsar and his advisors suggest what he calls the eponymous Volkogonov plan. He has outlined a series of issues within the imperial army and a group of solutions that would address them. Firstly, a grand sweeping plan of conscription will be introduced to make sure that we'll have enough soldiers for a final push westwards. Secondly, there will be a comprehensive and total propaganda campaign amongst our troops and throughout our territory that would help redefine the image of the White Army, wiping away the fear and distaste that many have for our movement. Well, there we go. Do we want to hike up taxes? I don't know if we do. Oh. Well. I must admit, Volkogonov has quite ambitious plans, if I must say so myself. It's true, Your Excellency, but a necessity. The army has been plagued too long by politics. It will be hard, especially as it will rid us of some very useful people. It will do our nation much more good than bad. Mikhail nodded in agreement and turned to Anatoly Sobchak, the soon-to-be Prime Minister of the Duma. What do you think, Mr. Sobchak? Well, with all due respect, began Sobchak, pushing the documents across the table to Volkogonov. While I do believe that the plans will work as intended, I don't find myself agreeing with the objectives. Mikhail raised an eyebrow, looking at Volkogonov for a moment before turning back to Sobchak. Go on, I wish to hear of your reasons. Your Excellency, I disagree with this because making an army loyal to our country as well as the Tsar is what is allowed for such people as Shepanov, believing themselves above their station in the name of protecting the people. While I believe that some excesses should be curbed by and large, the army should be loyal to the Tsar and his will. This is just nonsense. The reason people like Shepanov had such influence is because they had His Excellency as a figurehead, using him as another term for the nation rather than their own personal interest. By combining them as one and the same, we can avoid that from ever happening again. Irrational. Such nonsense. Explain away, Mr. Sobchak. I would love to hear. Stop! I will not hear of this. Sobchak, while I do find your reasoning compelling, I find my own experiences have outweighed such positions. I'll stand by Volkogonov 100%, and I expect you to go through with that plan, understood? Sobchak nodded. I understand, Your Excellency. The army's loyalty is to the nation, not ideology. Are we still, No, we're still despotism. Okay. I think we'll eventually switch over to something else. Meanwhile, our poverty programs are kicking in quite nicely, I gotta say. We have some free civilian factories. Could I do a supply hub? I don't know why I can build supply hubs some places and not at others. And I'll just build it here then. Why not? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Let's placate the workers' worries. One of the legacies of the Soviet Union was the vast and overly ambitious Siberian Central Plan, which saw a massive increase of industrialization east of the Urals throughout Central and Western Siberia, some of which we now control as our own territory. In these areas where industrialization is much higher than in other places that we have controlled in the past, the workers, used to generous concessions by their former administrators, have grown worried that the whites would not respect for the rights that they cherish so dearly. We don't plan on giving them the same concessions afforded them as the Soviets, not by a long shot. The administration has agreed that a small conservative bill of workers' rights would serve to placate the workers in Central Siberia, ensure that they'd be more willing to cooperate with us. Well, 12-hour workday is probably going to be good. So we have no limits currently. Yeah, 12-hour workday is just going to be better. Well, Himmler's managed to hold on to power, it seems. Go figure, I suppose. I'll like up taxes real quick. Lose some military austerity again as well. Let's do a new generation of industry. Despite our well-documented attempts to distance ourselves from the co-prosperity sphere and their long, damaging economic tendrils, few will admit that our former association with Japan and our scions and Arbian have been complete waste. One of the few genuine bonuses we've garnered from our cooperation with Tokyo is in the form of the Manchurian reform bureaucrats, a series of Japanese and Manchurian men set about industrializing and modernizing Manchukuo's economy. With significant time spent in Arbian and its educational institutions, there's been a new generation of white emigrant economists, the first and oldest only just now entering the relevant workforce, inspired by these reform bureaucrats that have a number of ideas on how to steer the future of our economic development. These new economists should be recognized and given the positions needed to ensure that they have the most positive effects on our economy as possible. Well, there we go. I suppose that's fine. So now that Himmler survives, what happens now? Do they get to, do they go after him now, or what's... Well, he's not in the faction anymore. Victor had been slamming his third drink in a bar when the Tsar came on television. Through hazy eyes, he recognized Mikhail as he spoke of all the workers' rights and protections he was granting the people of Novosibirsk. He began to chuckle bitterly. The Tsar outlined the protections of the new Bill of Workers' Rights. Only a few hours earlier, Victor had been a worker himself. He He'd been a steel worker like many others at the bar that night. The life of a steel worker was hard, especially in Novosibirsk. Long hours at the forge filled one's lungs up with gases that would whittle away one's ability to breathe, and accidents were dangerously common. Victor, of course, knew these things well. Can't work 10 years at a steel works without knowing them. It was like he told his boss when he'd been sat down at the head office today. Victor had stayed with the forges, making steel even as the war in the east had raged on, demanding more and more soldiers. It was where he'd worked even as Tsar's men took Novosibirsk. It had all gotten him a grand total of nothing. His boss told him that they were shipping the forge machinery east and that he'd have to find a new job. And now, Tsar had the audacity to claim that he liberated the city, and he now wanted to protect the workers with his new bill. Rights at his city had already made in place when Imperial soldiers invaded. Victor turned to the man on his right with a bitter smile still on his lips and raised his glass. God save Tsar, right? What's going on in Orenburg? They're just kind of existing right now, aren't they? Yeah. How are we doing infrastructure-wise? Let's expand out a little bit more. Let's make sure we have level 5 infrastructure in our country. And let's expand out the Imperial corporations. I'm not going to like the hit to industrial equipment, but what are you going to do? One of the first and most essential suggestions that these young reform bureaucrats inspired economists suggested is a systemic destruction of Japanese Zaibatsu influence within our nation, expansion in their state of the imperial corporations that have been set up when we were first struggling with fascists so many years ago. They've aptly suggested that we should, in accordance with our international goals, reduce our reliance on Zaibatsu, which have up until now been a fairly influential force on the economy, and instead focus on growing the imperial corporations into massive companies in their own right. While some argue this would only be a temporary measure, pending a more tempered reaction in the future, others have been silent on the future of these imperial corporations. Well, let's just do that. Why not? We'll also go ahead. Now we have a deficit no matter what we do. So the cut to the business tax. Oh no, we have a surplus back now. Okay. That should knock us down at least a little bit. Well, I am ready to go on my vacation. Y'all have no idea. Well, I'm sure some of you do, actually. I assume y'all can imagine. Let's get to a new white movement. The white movement was established in the wake of the October Revolution, when the Bolsheviks seized power in Moscow and Petrograd, sparking a civil war that would last for years. That was in 1917, over 5 decades ago. While the prominent leaders of the original white movement were once brave and valiant soldiers, officers, and statesmen, the ravages of time killed many and enfeebled many more. With the great passing of the Ottoman in 1962, the last of the great veterans disappeared, leaving in his wake the worst of the worst. Now we find ourselves in the control of the last vestige of the white movement. With our triumph over Shepanov and the reunification of the East, we can begin to make the white movement our own, defining it in modern terms, shedding the archaic and bringing in new generations of ideologues so long as they don't deviate too far from the Tsar and his clique's vision. Ever since the store had first opened in Krasnoyarsk, Galina had been a loyal customer. Operated by a Zaibatsu subsidiary and made a Japanese product not otherwise seen in Siberia, and she made sure to inspect their new arrivals every week. But now, and very suddenly, was gone. So focused on imagining what she might see, she had not even noticed until she had attempted to open the door. It's only when she realized it was locked, looked through the window, and saw a workman installing new displays, that she understood. Knocking on the door to draw their attention, she managed to draw their foreman to speak to her. The man confirmed her fears. The store and the company that had operated it were both gone for good. An educated fellow, he patiently explained that the new policies of the Tsar's government had made it impossible for Zaibatsu to compete with the imperial corporations, including the one that had purchased the building. But he assured her with a wide smile the owners intended to provide the exact same types of products, while making the state stronger at the same time. Only now those products would be made in Siberia rather than the factories of Japan. Galina managed a weak smile, thanked the man, and left. She knew the old store would not be coming back, not with the rhetoric she'd been hearing, confirmed by the foreman. She also knew that the Siberian products were not likely to be as well built or as diverse as Japanese. But she would go to the store, smile, and buy some of the items. She had to be seen to support the initiative, and who knew, maybe some of the items would surprise her. Capitalism is a tool like any other. There we go. Democracy 101. The dining room of the Tsar's palace, the three most powerful men in the country sat together at a meal. It wasn't simply a pleasant meal, it was a meeting to determine the very future of the institutions of the empire. All due respect, Tsar Mikhail, we must proceed with the democratic elections without delay. People have waited long enough, and I fear the return of protests, Volkoganov explained. His face was a little sad, but determined, long since decided to not let the brutality he had seen in response to previous protests go in vain. Mikhail nodded, considering this, before turning to Sobchak. Do you have any wisdom to share yourself, Anatoly? Certainly, Tsar Mikhail. I'm afraid I must wholeheartedly disagree with my associate here. What is an election without political parties, without political media, without even many people prepared to run? Speck paused a moment after posing this rhetorical question, a small smile on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. Instead, we should have a civilian provisional government to prepare the people for a modern democracy and solidify democratic institutions. Now, of course, ultimately the choice is yours, my Tsar. Setting down his knife and fork, Mikhail thought very carefully for a few long moments. Ultimately, however, he came to a decision. The provisional government is necessary. Let's make our claims official next. Our administration and its predecessors have long claimed the legitimacy of the Russian Empire, denying the legality of the February and October revolutions. However, we've had ourselves said this for years, the vast majority of the international community takes our claims with a grain of salt. Thus, it's time to make a formal statement to our people and to the entire world that we are who we say we are. The heirs to the Russian Empire. The last legal and organized government to rule over the Russian people. Of course, lots of work still needs to be done on that specific announcement to make sure that not only makes our claims clear, but that it's also palatable for the international community. Well, there we go. Let's sell some convoys. Why am I getting a call now? I'm recording. I'll have to call back later. And there we go. Tying loose ends. Well, France, I imagine, should get most of that back, at least. Let's see, the horror state finally end. Next, let's redefine our history. We have a chance, an incredibly, extremely rare chance, to be able to reforge our identity in light of the recent domestic triumphs that we've had. Throughout the Russian Civil War and the years of exile in RB, and many began to believe that the white movement was synonymous with some very, very terrible tendencies. Virulent anti-Semitism, the so-called White Terror, a history of cooperation with a despicable and long-defunct Russian fascist party, to name a few. We need to make it clear to not only the world, but to our people, the ones that we shepherd, that these tendencies were not and are not representative of the white movement. Instead, only a few select individuals of our movement, like the perfidious Romanoff, for example, are responsible for what the whole movement became known for. A right movement, bad eggs not included, is one that has always aimed for the restoration of the free Russia under the Tsar. Yeah. Alright. Sure. For such an important announcement, all would agree, years later, that the method in which it was delivered was also surprisingly subdued, surprisingly solemn. It was also, however, respectful of the political weight that it carried and what it meant for the nation as a whole. Tsar Mikhail, seated in full regalia, with a look of long-practiced poise, spoke to the camera clearly and directly. His ministers, soldiers, airmen, and other civil servants had, in his name, secured control over almost all of Russia proper. They had defeated fascists, communist bandits, and more, and they returned security to millions upon millions of ordinary Russians. It was, therefore, only natural that he formally announced his claim to the long-vacant imperial throne, and thus his government's claim as a successor to and reincarnation of the Russian Empire. To many within the land, his state controlled this, which seems almost an academic statement. Mikhail had been called Tsar for many years, even before he had secured power over the white officers' clique. But politically, and more importantly, internationally, was anything but. The claim had been made and the gauntlet thrown down. The only thing that remained to be seen was what the response or challenge from the nations of the world would be. Who can doubt the Tsar's claims? Not I, that's for sure. Hopefully not anyone else in this comment section. If so, we're going to have a word. Interesting indeed. Oh, look at that. China has its purple color now. I think whether or not I should play China. If you guys want to see me play China, let me know in the comment section below. Well, I do plan on playing this bit of China. But I mean China proper. Sergei Fedorovich cursed under his breath as he examined the radio. It had been working fine for weeks, only now started to give him grief. One of the few days he was able to get leave, and he couldn't even enjoy some tunes during his carefree afternoon. Piece of shit. Sergei heard the apartment door open behind him and turned to see a familiar woman with a bag of groceries in hand. His eyes were wide and confused. Why are you attacking my radio, Sergei? Did it hurt your feelings? No, Sophia, the damn thing doesn't work. Sergei interrupted himself with more hits beside the radio, and the last radio finally began to speak. Sergei recognized the voice instantly as General Dmitry Volkogonov, who he served under over past campaign. Oh, can we do unification talks? Interesting. Great honor to announce that martial law will soon come to an end. I've been working with several capable ministers in the interest of establishing a civilian government, and I'm quite happy to say that this goal has finally become reality. Dear citizens of the Empire, it is my promise that the White Army will, from this point onward, only serve to protect the people rather than to enforce their subservience. As Sergei listened, Sophia came to sit by him. But this news was not what they expected to hear. And HoI Sobchak, who distinguished himself as the Mayor Chita, shall become our new Prime Minister. He shall aid our Emperor and out his estate, and work in tandem to ensure The radio suddenly cut out, ending the speech prematurely. Sergei exclaimed a curse, flying from the seat to physically abuse manufactured malfunctioning device once more. Oh, well, there he is. A fleeting glimpse of history. Well, there we go. We now have a provisional government. Alright, my friends, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there at that note. But thanks as always for watching. If you like this video, like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you have any comments, feedback, leave in the comment section below. I read all comments again, and I do appreciate any feedback you might have for me. The sub on notification bell to keep updated with these uploads as they come out. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave things there. But thank you as always for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogbot333, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.